47 seconds ago, in a Senate Intelligence Committee hearing room packed with cameras, Adam Schiff did something that made FBI Director Kash Patel's hands tremble so violently that water spilled from his glass onto the witness table. The California senator opened a manila folder marked with red classification stripes, positioned it toward the C-SPAN camera, and revealed a document that Patel had just testified under oath did not exist. The folder contained an internal FBI memorandum dated November 3, 2025, bearing Patel's digital signature, ordering the permanent classification of witness testimony that named 17 individuals connected to Jeffrey Epstein's criminal network. But that is not what made the color drain from Patel's face in 3 visible seconds. What made his breathing quicken? What made his left hand move to loosen his tie? What made his 4 attorneys lean forward in panic was the second document Schiff pulled from that folder. A witness protection agreement signed by Patel just 6 days earlier, granting emergency classified status to one of the 17 names in the buried testimony. The name was visible for 4 seconds, long enough for cameras to capture it, long enough for the room to collectively gasp, long enough for reporters to start frantically typing, long enough for Republican committee members to exchange alarmed glances, long enough for Kash Patel to understand his career was about to end in the most public way imaginable. The hearing was scheduled as routine oversight. Annual budget discussions, operational briefings, standard theater where senators ask prepared questions and directors provide rehearsed answers. Patel arrived at 9:47 a.m., 13 minutes early, flanked by his legal team. He wore his Navy suit, American flag pin positioned on his lapel, expression neutral. The first 90 minutes proceeded as scripted. Republican senators praised his leadership and arrest statistics. Democrats pressed on controversial topics, the reassignment of 1,200 counterintelligence agents, the firing of 14 senior officials, the denial of security clearances for agents who criticized the previous administration. But Patel deflected each challenge with bureaucratic precision, citing ongoing investigations and national security protocols. At 11:32 a.m., Chairman Mark Warner recognized Senator Adam Schiff. The room's energy shifted. Reporters looked up. Camera operators adjusted positions. Democratic staffers stopped whispering. Republican aides tensed. Everyone understood that Schiff did not ask questions unless he already possessed the answers. He did not bring documents unless those documents would alter careers. His reputation had been built on this. Careful construction of inescapable traps, methodical presentation of evidence that left no room for denial. Schiff is methodical, a former federal prosecutor who built his reputation prosecuting organized crime, a congressman who served as lead impeachment manager, a senator who had spent 8 weeks preparing for this moment, 8 weeks reviewing classified materials, interviewing FBI whistleblowers who risked their careers, coordinating with the Inspector General's office. The manila folder sat on his desk, closed but visible. Red classification markings clearly identifiable. Patel saw it immediately, his eyes tracking to the folder for 1 second. Trained observers saw the micro-expression, recognition, calculation, concern. That brief moment told the story. He knew what was coming. "Director Patel," Schiff began, his voice carrying that prosecutorial tone, calm and measured. "I want to discuss FBI document classification practices, specifically regarding materials related to the Jeffrey Epstein investigation." The temperature dropped. Epstein questions always had that effect. But Schiff's delivery was different, not theatrical, just precise, like a surgeon announcing the incision. Patel's left hand moved to his water glass. "Of course, Senator. The FBI maintains rigorous protocols for classification decisions, particularly regarding sensitive investigations." "Excellent," Schiff said. The word landed like a hammer. "So you would agree that classification decisions require proper justification and cannot be used to avoid political embarrassment or protect powerful individuals?" Patel nodded, still confident. "Absolutely, Senator. Our classification system exists to protect national security. It would be inappropriate and illegal to classify information for any other purpose." Schiff opened the manila folder with theatrical precision. Director Patel, are you familiar with FBI Classification Memorandum, CM 2025-0847, dated November 3, 2025? Patel's composure cracked. His eyebrows drew together, his mouth opened before closing. Senator, without seeing the specific document, I cannot comment on individual memoranda. We process hundreds of classification decisions weekly. Let me refresh your memory, Schiff interrupted, holding up a document with official FBI letterhead and red classification stamps. This is a memorandum authored and digitally signed by you personally. Subject line: Permanent Classification Override, Epstein Investigation Witness Testimony. Complete silence. Not polite quiet. Heavy, oppressive silence. Schiff began reading. Quote, upon review of FBI case file CI 2019-8847, Jeffrey Epstein investigation, witness testimony files 2801A through 2817F, I am exercising director-level classification override authority to designate the following materials as permanently classified. These 17 witness testimony files contain statements naming individuals in positions of significant political, financial, and diplomatic influence. Standard classification criteria do not apply. However, in my judgment, public disclosure would create unacceptable risks to national stability. Effective immediately, these files are designated top secret, permanent classification, no declassification, review timeline. Signed Kash Patel, FBI Director. End quote. The impact was devastating. Patel's face went visibly pale, color draining in a way observers would describe as watching confidence evacuate a human body in real time. His hands began to tremble, pronounced shaking that intensified rapidly. The tremor started in his fingers, spread to his wrists, visible from the press gallery. He reached for his water glass, but when he lifted it, the trembling was so severe that water sloshed over the rim, spilling onto the table in drops that caught the lights. Cameras captured everything: the spilled water pooling on polished wood, the shaking hands unable to control the glass, the desperate attempt to maintain composure failing in real time. One of his attorneys leaned forward urgently, whispering advice Patel seemed unable to process. His eyes remained fixed on Schiff, unblinking. Senator, Patel managed, his voice barely recognizable. That memorandum is internal, and the contents are being taken out of context. Context? Schiff cut him off. Let me provide context. He pulled a second document. This is the FBI's internal classification review conducted by your deputy director, dated October 28, 2025, 6 days before your memorandum. Quote, review of witness testimony files 2801A through 2817F finds no information meeting criteria for national security classification. Testimonies contain no intelligence sources, no classified methods. Content consists entirely of witness statements describing observations at Epstein properties. Recommendation: approve for declassification. Paul Abate, Deputy Director. End quote. Schiff locked eyes with Patel. Your own Deputy Director found no national security justification. 6 days later, you overrode his judgment and buried 17 testimonies permanently. What national security interest requires hiding names that trafficking victims identified? The question hung suspended. Patel sat motionless, hands clasped together to stop their shaking, breathing audibly rapid. Senator, classification decisions require balancing diplomatic relations, ongoing cooperation. Schiff pulled out a third document. Which 17 people? I have the list. Let me read something specific. Witness Testimony File 2809C. A woman who worked at Epstein's Manhattan residence in 2008 and 2009. She provided detailed statements about individuals she observed, including dates, descriptions, and interactions. She came forward in 2019, believing justice would be served. She spent hours with FBI agents. She provided calendars, appointment logs, photographs she had kept for years. He paused. This witness named a sitting senator, a former cabinet secretary, a technology executive who donated $47 million to campaigns, a European royal family member, and a Hollywood producer. She offered to testify in court, take a polygraph, provided corroborating evidence that FBI analysts verified as authentic. And you, Director Patel, decided the American people should never see her testimony. You decided that her courage, her willingness to come forward, her detailed evidence meant nothing. Not because of national security, because the people she named are too powerful to investigate. That is not, Patel started, voice cracking. That is not accurate. The classification was based on what? Schiff's fury was barely contained. Your counterintelligence division found no classified information, zero intelligence equities. So tell me, tell this committee, tell the American people, why did you bury 17 witnesses who named powerful men connected to child trafficking? At 11:53 a.m., Kash Patel completely lost composure, his face contorted with panic and anger. Senator, this is, but words caught in his throat. His hands shook so badly he pulled them off the table. Schiff pulled out the final document. Director Patel, do you recognize this? A witness protection authorization form signed by you on October 27, 2025, 1 week before you classified the testimonies, emergency classified witness status, FBI security detail, protective custody. He held up the form so cameras captured the signature. And the individual receiving this protection? His name appears in 11 of the 17 testimonies you buried. The same man, named by 11 witnesses, and you granted him FBI protection 1 week before making sure those testimonies would never see daylight. The chamber erupted. Journalists rushed from seats. Camera operators scrambled. Democratic members shouted questions. Republican members sat frozen. The chairman banged his gavel. Patel sat motionless, hands trembling, face drained, breathing shallow. His attorneys stood, whispering urgent advice he could not hear. So, let me be clear, Schiff said, cutting through the noise. You reviewed 17 testimonies naming powerful individuals. Your counterintelligence division found no national security justification. You overrode that assessment and buried them permanently. And 1 week earlier, you granted FBI protection to a man named in 11 of those hidden testimonies. That is not classification, Director. That is obstruction of justice. Within minutes, video clips went viral. Patel's trembling hands, spilled water, visible loss of composure. News networks interrupted programming with breaking news banners. FBI Director caught hiding Epstein witness testimony trended worldwide, accumulating millions of views. Legal experts called it the most damning congressional testimony in modern history. Former prosecutors stated they had never witnessed such clear evidence of obstruction in a congressional hearing. Republican senators who defended Patel began issuing careful statements about needing time to review evidence. The White House refused comment, a silence Washington recognized as preparation to cut loose a liability. Press secretary briefings were canceled. By evening, FBI whistleblowers came forward in surprising numbers. Career agents leaked communications showing Patel had personally ordered witness testimony files moved to a special access program requiring his direct approval. Some agents revealed they had been threatened with termination for questioning the classification decisions. The Department of Justice Inspector General announced an immediate investigation into potential obstruction, destruction of evidence, and violations of congressional oversight statutes. Criminal referrals were being prepared. Sometimes accountability does not require months of investigation. Sometimes it just requires a prosecutor with a manila folder, the patience to build an evidentiary trap, and the courage to ask simple questions that have no acceptable answers. Adam Schiff asked those questions. Kash Patel had no answers. And in 47 seconds, with trembling hands and spilled water captured on camera, the most brazen cover-up of witness testimony in FBI history was exposed, destroyed not by partisan politics, but by documented evidence and one man's complete inability to explain why 17 trafficking victims were silenced to protect the powerful men they named.